Hey, I'm Doug from Zachlin Heritage Farm. Today we're going to look at the paper potter and how it actually works on a farm and some of the realities of what's awesome about it and some of the things that can be a little bit challenging with it. So it's end of March, it's kind of the beginning of the season up here outside of Vancouver, BC. We're all loaded up with different things, favas, spinach, green onions. We're going to take them to the field and try and get them in the ground. Some of the advantages of the paper potter is that you're going to get way better germ because you're starting the seedlings in the greenhouse. You're going to get really accurate spacing because it's pulled in the tray, and you're going to get your seedlings in the ground faster and earlier. It gives you an opportunity to really capitalize on the shoulder seasons, which I think as a small scale farmer, we're always trying to push the boundaries of what we can grow early and late. Part of the challenging thing of planting early can be that, especially where we are, we get a lot of wet weather and cold weather, and it's just the kind of condition that makes your seedlings more prone to rotting in the ground. A lot of times we're planting in beds that are less than ideal conditions, and that's exactly what we're going to do today, because if we're going to be real, you know, I see a lot of people paper potting into like super fluffy beds, and maybe half the time that's not the case. So it's end of March, and there's a lot of cover crop kind of remnants still in the bed, and a lot of clods of leftover stuff. So we're going to plant into that. Today we're going to start off with trying to seed favas. It's kind of a funny thing. I've never seen anybody seed favas. It's a really big seed. As you can see, it's kind of exploding out of the tray here. There's a good chance it won't work. It'll be an experiment. It's kind of a crazy idea to plant favas because the whole cell is almost taken up by the seed. Let's try it anyways. So when you start it out, you want to line it up on the bed. Start with a little trench here, which I just do by hand. And pull this out, get it started into that little trench that you've got. And kind of just bury the first bit by hand. See, it's already getting clogged here. So I just get it started till I've got sort of 3 or 4 pots in the ground, and that's enough to hold it, I find, with my soil. I know some people will use landscape pins, chopsticks, field markers, or whatever you might have to kind of hold it at the beginning here. You look here, you can see that the fava seed, if it goes in sideways, it catches, lodges in here. So that's a problem. Let's see what we can do to figure this out. So we're gonna try seeding it with 2 people. I'm going to feed it while Gemma pulls it. I think we learned a lot there. I probably wouldn't paper pot favas again, although maybe I would, I don't know. Favas are better to plant in the fall and then have them overwinter. This is a bit more labor intensive, but we're insured in good germination and spacing, and we didn't get a chance to plant in the fall, so here we are trying to get a head start in the spring. It was more work, but in the end, I think that we'll probably have a better crop. The most common question that people ask me about the paper potter is how well it works in rocky soil. And that can be a problem. But to be honest, if you're using a Jang clean seeder or even an earthway, you should be able to use a paper potter because it works in a lot of the same way. In any form of direct seeding method, the action that's happening is you're creating a furrow with a shoe, you're dropping the seed in, and then you're burying that furrow. And the paper potter works a lot in the same way. As you're pulling through the soil, this spear here opens it up, and then your paper pot chain is going in and it's burying it back here. This shoe is prone to getting clogged with soil clods and rocks, and so as you're going, you might need to stop and check that that's not clogged, because that's pretty common. So we started off with a really challenging bed with a lot of field debris and a seed that really shouldn't be used in a paper potter. So let's go try it in a bed that's a bit more ideal conditions with an easier crop. So now we're gonna seed some Fukugawa. They're green scallion. The paper potter performs a lot better with these things, so let's see how it goes. Part of the thing is looking at what your row is beside. You can see I'm kind of burying the row beside here. That can be a problem if you're too close or if you're too deep and moving too much soil. As you're pulling it, the only real control that you have is holding this up or down. The more up you pull on here, the more it drops on that side, which means it's furrowing more. The only adjustments that you can make are down here. There's a knob that controls depth. I really just always have that as low as possible on my soil. You can adjust these two hands here. That will control a little bit how much backfill there is. And then these two heavy solid plastic wheels help to kind of pack the soil back around the plants. Sometimes it doesn't bury them exactly the way that you want, or maybe it underburies them, it overburies them. You can see right now I'm overburying the bed beside. Sometimes you have to come back with a tine rake or with your hands and bury or unbury the plants. But if everything goes right, you don't have to do that. And if you do have to do that, it doesn't take that long to do it. So that was pretty easy. You can see what happened here is as I was doing this, well, as you pull it, it kind of creates these mounds on the side. So I did those two and it buried this middle one a bit too much. So I might just come back with my hands and kind of unbury it. But what I find is if it's underburied, the paper of the tray will be exposed, and that'll kind of create a wicking action, which can dry out your the cell that the plant is in. So if anything, you want to overbury a little bit, I think. As long as there's some green exposed, they'll grow up. It's always good to kind of come back and check on everything and see how it's looking. You know, some days your soil condition's just nice and everything just works perfectly and it's just like a dream. And other days you could have soil debris, you could have rocky section, you could just be frustrated and kind of working against yourself, and it feels like, man, this is a pain in the ass, why am I using this thing? But to be honest, even when it's working really poorly and less than prime conditions, you're still saving time, because no matter what, your alternative is doing every cell by hand. So this is a huge cost-saving tool. Transplanting on a farm used to take 1 to 2 days with a crew of 4 people to transplant. Now it's a job for 1 person 1 day a week. So you can imagine that's a huge difference in the amount of labor, which translates to a lot of savings on the farm. So the paper potter was initially developed in Japan for the sugar beet crop, but the things that work really well on a small scale farm that we found are radishes, hakuris, salanova, mini gems, spinach, green onions, peas, and things that are, yeah, we can see favas aren't really ideal. People are always experimenting with new things, you know. Maybe you're on a herb farm and you're like cilantro and dill are awesome things to transplant. So it's a really fun tool and it saves a lot of cost and a lot of time. Now you've seen how the paper pot performs in less than ideal bed with a less than ideal crop, and more ideal bed condition and a more ideal crop. But I need to go get these beets and spinach in, so I'll catch you in the next video.